What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
What kind of ignorant shit is that?
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
You idiot, you fool!
Hey, dummy!
This is the Ignorance is Blessed podcast.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Hey idiots! Welcome back to Ignorance is Blessed, the podcast that attempts to overcome ignorance, mostly by asking ignorant questions. I'm your host, Jessica Michelle Singleton. You can call me JMS, or you can just call me a fucking idiot, because I don't know a thing about anything, and that's why I started this podcast. It's why we're here. If you are new, welcome, first of all. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on the iTunes podcast app. It helps. Should I said iPhone? iTunes? I don't know what the appropriate thing to tell you is. But like if you're a podcast person, you get it. The little purple app that says podcast, you open it, type in my podcast, scroll down to write a review, blah, blah, blah. The point is, the more reviews I have, the easier it is for people to find my podcast, the more likely it is to pop up in searches quicker, and more people find us, we can learn and grow together, and eventually start a cult that takes down society. Thank you so much to all the new subscribers and reviewers. Shout out to my best idiots forever, Gene and Kathy, the top level Patreon patrons. If you want to join my Patreon, patreon.com/ignoranceisblessed. For just $1 a month, you can get early uncut episodes, bonus episodes, all the way up to I send postcards at certain levels, gifts. Get involved. It's a self-sufficient podcast. I don't want to take on sponsors that I don't believe in. And having patrons helps me stick to my morals and never cave in a desperate time and start trying to sell you a mattress that I don't actually own, or, I don't know, vitamins I've never taken. Anyway, thank you to the new patrons. Thank you to everyone who is coming on board. And let's just dive in. I am in Paris on Tuesday. Pan Am Art Cafe. I'm just doing a spot there. And then I am on vacation for the week with my boyfriend in Europe. Is he going to propose? Probably not. He'll be with his whole band too. But you may have seen by now if I've committed to this, but I am toying with the idea of constantly doing videos where I think he's about to propose. And then I'm let down because I think that's funny, but then I don't want anyone to not understand that and have to deal with being like, no, it's a joke. Because last week I posted a meme. 2 weeks ago I posted a meme with a caption joking. I mean, it was a joking about my brother having overdose, which he did 2 years ago. He's fine now, but I kept having to tell people like, hey, no, like he didn't just overdose. I'm just sharing an old tweet. Everything's fine. Focus on the joke. Focus on the punchline. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. Jesus. Speaking of death, Chelsea London Lloyd joins me to talk about losing her father. What a weird segue. She lost her father at age 19 to ALS. She grew up with him, going through the deterioration and medical issues that causes. And I picked her brain about that. So it was a very interesting conversation. Relatively lighthearted. We were able to keep it, I think, given the topic. She's a really sweet girl, fun, awesome lady. I met her. She's new in the comedy world, so a young woman who's been doing comedy for a little bit, and I actually met her. I was asked to be a guest speaker at a women's beginning stand-up class. My friend Lisa Sunstead, who I've had on here, who runs the Pretty Funny Women workshops, asked me to come in and speak about life on the road and life as a stand-up comedian to her class. So I met her there. I was doing some tags for them and stuff, and then what a great story. So I asked if she'd be okay sharing it, and she was. She's delightful. Enough about all that. Let's get to the podcast. Here it is, Chelsea London Lloyd. Hey, idiots. You guys, I'm here with Chelsea London Lloyd. Amazing comedian, adorable human. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that to other women now. If that's are we allowed to call people beautiful anymore? I don't know.
Who knows?
They're like, I'm more than that. But it's like, okay, but also like acknowledge how cute I am. Fuck you.
I'm into it.
Yeah, your dress.
You're beautiful. Let's just stare into each other's eyes.
It's just a silent podcast. Thank you. You're lying, but I appreciate it. I definitely have the vibe of someone who's only doing audio things today. and I'm excited about it, honestly.
I mean, do you think I want to be wearing this? Absolutely not. This
Well,
is not my vibe.
You look so cute, audition dressed up, and
Ew.
you literally sitting here reminded me that I was like, oh yeah, I like told myself I was gonna maybe start like filming my podcast, but no, I'm not. I'm probably never going to.
It's kind of like sexy to like never know what really happened.
No, like you don't know. Actually, maybe we're both just naked, covered in the ice cream that we're crying into. I tried to make it not sexual at the end, and then I said covered in ice cream, and I'm so sorry.
Is it weird I'm down?
Yeah, I mean, no.
All right. Okay. Anyway.
Juicy.
This is what you told me not to do. You're like, please don't.
No.
Banter.
No, you can if something comes to you. I just feel like I never want someone to feel like they have to be on. So they feel like, yeah, I never want the podcast to end and someone be like, I wasn't that funny and feel bad about it. Comedians, we're such sensitive creatures. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to be like, I failed. Because I like to believe my listeners get laughs, but that's not what they're here for. They're here for gross, personal dissecting of people's traumas and identities.
That is what the world is about.
It
idiots.
really is.
It really
is. A little bit closer to the mic. Sorry, it's cheap gear. Let's just dive in. I met you a couple months ago, maybe.
Yeah, when was that?
I don't even know.
Whenever you were in Lisa's class teaching.
Yeah.
Given the joke punch up.
So crazy. And I think you mentioned what we're going to talk about there. But did I? Interesting. Or did you have a joke on it? Wait.
Probably.
So I'll just jump in because what we're going to talk about is that you lost your father. I'm very sorry.
Thank you.
To ALS.
Yes.
Did you also have? Is your mom alive?
Great. These are great questions. She has advanced breast cancer, so she's alive.
Okay.
Barely,
Ooh, boy. Because I thought I remembered your mom having breast cancer, and I didn't remember. Oh God.
We can go to all the places.
Oh my
guys.
God, we're hanging on by a titty.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet dear. Because I was like, I feel like there was something else there. I should have tried to play that like a psychic. I'm getting a vibe.
You look
boy.
like someone who's the daughter of sick and dead people.
I am the daughter of very, very sick mentally and emotionally. Well, no, and physically now. My mom, she has COPD, which...
What is that?
Coronary something pulmonary. She smoked too many cigarettes. It's emphysema, basically. But she plays it off like it's just an extended cold. And I'm like, all right, well... I hear you breathing. It's very rough. But
how's she doing?
I mean, she's doing okay. She lives in Korea. And so,
she does?
yeah,
Wow.
she works for the government. I think she's a spy. I need to make jokes
from
about
Korea?
it. No.
Okay.
But I should start telling people I am because that's exotic.
See what happens.
I'm just like, I have said that she lives in Korea and had people go like, oh, I didn't know you were Korean. I kind of see it. And I'm like, no, you don't. What does that mean? No. I wish you did because it would mean my skin looked amazing. But, so I don't know. She's one of those people who just sort of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. She's never going to tell me how. She could be literally like a cough away from dying and being like, I'm fine. And then secretly like, nobody cares about me. She's fun.
I hope she's okay. Sorry.
Me too. And it's just hard. Parents get old too. And that's rough. But then my dad is just, I have no idea how he is physically because he's been gone for years. So, we all have our different drama. My dad.
Something you talk about?
Oh yeah, I've been talking about it more too. But yeah, he like abandoned me. So it's just
I'm sorry. That's
it's
really difficult.
I mean,
That's
it's all difficult. Yeah, I feel like a lot of comedians have some sort of, that's so funny. Like you have dead parent vibes. And I'm like, I get it.
By the way, I was saying that you would maybe were thinking that about me. I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't projecting that onto you. And I felt like
I was like, that's crazy because people always say I have orphan vibes.
No, I was joking that like
I
was not saying that about
I haven't had enough coffee. I can't even get your jokes. I'm failing.
They weren't jokes. It was a failure.
No. I wonder how many people listening that whole time were like, as I was just going on and on, we're like, you fucking moron.
No, I felt really bad because I was like, I don't.
I start crying.
I'm like, I wanted to know that info. Like, I wanted to know.
Now we're all not, I wouldn't say the same page, but we know where we're at. Let's just dive in. Okay. Because
I want to ask you more questions now about this. Let's
that's
do
another podcast for another.
Come on, Mike.
I should.
Yeah.
I've got the 100th episode coming up. Maybe I'll have someone interview me.
Yes. I feel that. Yes.
And
yes.
yeah, it's a little bit of a cop out of like, I feel like I have to get a big guest and I don't know who I'm
big
going to
guest.
get.
Surprise.
So what a fucking lame. It's me. And they're like, we've heard enough about you, bitch.
No, I would be super interested to listen to that episode. I wish, my podcast is only people with dead parents, or else I would interview you.
Hey, give me a few years.
Yeah.
I'm coming
Call
in
me
strong.
when it happens.
Yeah, when I get the notification, because that's what it's going to be. I'll be tagged in a Facebook post. And my stepdad will just like post a photo of my mom dead on the ground and be like, we lost her. Like,
oh God, I hope not.
It sounds morbid, but I'm not 100% true. I'm not 100% sure if that's even a joke. Anyway, let's get into your dad.
Okay.
So, ALS. But that's Lou Gehrig's disease, right?
Yes, they are. It is two names for the same thing because it wasn't confusing enough. So they decided to give it two names.
My goodness. So if anyone listening doesn't know anything about ALS, are you able to give a little like summary? I feel like I could, but maybe it's better from you.
Sure, we could both do it. Roll the dice, see what comes out. ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Wow. That's all we need to know. Big words. And
scary.
Yeah, so Lou Gehrig was a famous baseball player who had the disease, and it was named after him. And it is a disease where your muscles stop working and eventually deteriorate, essentially. So they just stop working and go away, which is why people can look really skinny and frail, and they don't know how you get it, and there's no cure. So that's difficult, obviously.
A huge bummer, yeah. What a shitty way to put it. Well, that sucks.
Nothing great about it, but it's interesting. They have learning so much more about it, and there are lots of athletes who get it, which I think is interesting. Although they haven't been able to pinpoint why, but yeah, a lot of people who played a lot of sports tend to get it. You tend to get it later in life. A lot of men in their 50s or 60s. There are some people now who are getting it earlier, but in general, it's like an older person, and more men than women get it.
That's so interesting. How old was your dad when he got it?
He was in his 50s.
Okay. How old were you? I
was 8. His first symptoms when I was 4, and then he wasn't diagnosed for a few years.
Oh, wow. What were the first, what made him finally go? I don't know, 8's pretty young. I don't know if you remember, what made him go, maybe I should see a doctor?
I know a lot about it from, talking to him later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, he said his first symptoms were, little, twitches and just things that were so subtle you kind of thought you were going insane. Is it me, or did something just move in my body, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I guess... I mean, I can't imagine, but the idea of, I sometimes get twitchy, tics just from, ever just that jerk awake. I find out I'm having seizures all the time. No, just I have rheumatoid arthritis. So sometimes I'll just have weird little tics, but I imagine if it's involuntary, it would feel kind of almost like you're being gaslighted by your own body. Wait. Mm-hmm. Whoa.
And then, dropping forks, dropping silverware was the thing that made him realize there was something wrong.
Oh, wow.
Just not being able to hold, pens and just little things like that. So that's.
So he's I got to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Do you know how long between him going, I need to see someone, how long it took to find a diagnosis?
Yeah, it took a few years because, I mean, it's weird. That wasn't that long ago, but just every year medicine gets so much better.
So much better.
Even then, they just, ran tests and didn't screen for every possible thing even then. And ALS is rare, so people don't assume.
Yeah, you don't go in and someone
ALS.
jumps to probably ALS.
Right.
I mean, thank God.
Right. Maybe now there's more, information.
Yeah, well, I know with testing and stuff, there's so much more they're able to see too in blood. They can test for such specific things and look at specific things with MRIs, where it's not that long ago. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it would, and even now still they're with autoimmune stuff and other diseases, they can go, a lot of things kind of mimic each other. So they're like, well, it could be a few things. And then you sort of have to, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Wow.
And most people die within a few years, like about 75% are, 2 to 3 years, sometimes 5, and then like 25% or less or more than that, and like less than 10% or more than 10 years, which his was, if you count from his first symptoms, was 15 years till he died, which is on the rarer side of ALS.
Wow. So you were 19.
Yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. How quickly did it get like really bad? Like, I assume he ended up in a wheelchair.
Yes. I mean, it progresses differently for everyone.
Of course.
So people, your limbs is common to either have issues there first, or it goes to your, voice, chest, which is, I think, is even more challenging. I mean, to lose your voice.
Oh no, I genuinely have like a deep fear and like nightmares. I think anyone would, but especially as people who have started making, their living out of speaking.
Yeah.
That truly haunts me. Like, I'll lose my voice. I lose it too regularly. I should take better care of it. I just yell a lot, but when it goes, I'm like, well, what if it's never coming back? I'm like, fuck. Did he completely lose his voice?
So his was the opposite. So his limbs first.
Okay.
So yeah, I was diagnosed when I was in 3rd grade. By the time I was in 7th grade, so 4 years, he was completely paralyzed, like from head to toe.
Oh gosh.
Not like, yeah, not. I mean, for a few years, I remember he couldn't drive. But he could walk and still like move around without usage of his arms or hands, and like people would just feed him. Then it moved to being completely paralyzed. So he ended up moving to a 24-hour care home, like 45 minutes away, because my mom took care of him for, imagine, years and years.
Yeah, that's so hard.
But then at a certain point, it's like your full-time job, and he was a
you
tall
have to
guy, and how do you even
yeah,
do it? Yeah.
It's when you have to like physically move people, and it's
Right.
like, it's so sad because you obviously don't want to put someone you love so far away, and they they're isolated, they can't even do anything, but at a certain point, it's what else can you do?
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, the care, like, fortunately, this was such a great facility. Like, the caregivers were amazing. And
That's
my
amazing.
mom visited him every day. But not everyone has the opportunity to have a facility that's so great, or at all, unfortunately. So it's very tricky to navigate, like, how you're going to pay for that, and who's
absolutely
gonna care for them and stuff like that.
Well, and with all the like red tape of insurance, or if people can even afford insurance, it's really sad, our country, the like state of affairs with all of that. I mean, luckily your dad was able to go somewhere, at least, where he was well taken care of, which is, I think, the most you can hope for in a situation like that. Mm-hmm. How did that affect you? Like, how did that make you feel, having to go visit your dad? Or when it was like, okay, just the moment of realizing your dad's gonna like be moved into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was really awkward because that, middle school is so awkward in
Yeah.
general. So like not having the tools to like say how you're feeling about it.
Absolutely. Well, and then in middle school, it's like, I feel like the only thing middle schoolers worry about is like, am I going to be embarrassed?
Yeah.
Like, are people going to, am I cool? Will I be made fun of at school?
Yeah, totally. So like, I just, I didn't really realize the severity of it till later, but I remember feeling really like, it's just hard because I think, you'd get used to him in a certain state, and then the next year, like something else. So just sort of that, strangeness. But I have a lot of compassion for anyone, who deals with it, because I'm like, oh wow, that was hard. But at the time, I just probably thought it was like the norm, but weird. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I feel like every kid, you don't have the tools to communicate properly, and just, I think everyone thought whatever was going on with their parents is like, well, this is just what happens with parents.
Yeah.
Like, it's your norm. So even though it's, difficult, I think our brains just adjusted as like, well, this is what happens.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, I don't know. Were you able to visit him a lot?
Yeah, I probably went like once a week, which is like, I mean, that's kind of sad. I'm like, for him, that was probably like the highlight of his like.
I mean, I'm
life.
Sure,
but it felt like a lot. And then in high school, it was harder just because like life's crazy and like all this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
I definitely had years of my life that I was not as consistent. Which like looking back, you're like, oh wow, like that sucks. That he probably would have loved it. But you're just like, oh, I don't need to go this week.
You're like, what am I gonna do? Well, especially like in high school, it's so. Just in every year. No, but you don't think as deeply about,
anything, right.
anything. So you're not going like, oh, my dad's probably sitting there and like bored and lonely. You're just like, what am I going to do there?
Right. Like we already talked last time.
It's like, we have nothing to catch up on. Nothing new has happened for me.
Yeah.
Probably nothing for him. And you're just not.
Definitely nothing.
Yeah. It's like, pretty same day to day.
How are the walls looking? Yeah,
and that can be hard for anyone, even if they like. I mean, obviously he's your dad, you love him, but it is. I think it's a bummer, but why it like causes people to hesitate visiting anyone in like a hospital or any type of facility because you're like, oh, it's gonna be awkward. You go after 5 minutes, you're like, so still not moving, huh? That's. Bummer. You're like, I'm going to make it worse.
Yeah, for sure. And like the relationships I had with the different nurses and caregivers was always so weird. Like some of them were super nice, but I didn't want them to be nice. Some of them were rude. And then why would you be rude? It's just like, so I like really should write like a script about it, but add it to the list of things that like I probably won't do tomorrow, but one day.
Oh, I mean, tell it to me, girl. Everything. There's always something to write about that I'm not writing about.
Right?
Truly.
Don't you feel like as a comedian, people are always like, oh, I know this about you. Are you going to write about it? Do you have a pilot about that? And you're like,
you should write a book, write a feature. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, I'm one person and I'm losing my mind. Yeah. But thank you for the suggestion. Person who has a day job and isn't a maniac like I am. Like, you're like, yeah, if I had 80 more hours in the day, sure.
For sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's so fun. Just all the, why don't you just do this? And you're like, oh yeah, I'll whip that up right now. I'll just go on the Tonight Show tomorrow. Sure, I'll call.
Yeah. I like mad respect for anyone who writes a book because I think that would be so cool one day. But would you want to write a book one day?
So many people, that's a big thing I've gotten as feedback. You should write a book. Mm-hmm. And then I've thought like that would be cool only based on like, people seem to think it'd be cool. Mm-hmm. But then when I actually go like, maybe I'll start planning this book. Then I go like, I don't want to write a book about my life. I'll do something else. I'm like, I need something catchier and then the book about my life. And it's like, I haven't written anything remotely close to a book, but people do like reading about like lives. It's the same reason they like podcasts, you know?
I was gonna say, I mean, you are doing it, like you're talking about yourself around the country and world and stand up and doing this podcast. So like that is a version of a book that actually can impact just as many people.
Oh my God, I could just cut my podcast into an audiobook.
Done.
Just every time I started talking about myself, which is too much.
Fair. Samesies.
Samesies.
Yeah, my dad actually wrote, speaking of books, he started when he was diagnosed writing a book because he was bored because he was a lawyer and he couldn't practice anymore, which I always think about, like, you know how much you love your career.
Yeah.
Like, I love my career. Like imagining not being able to do the thing you love, B, the thing you prepped for so much of your life for, and C, the thing that makes you money is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's like you've made it your identity.
Yeah.
And now I truly think that and I don't think I'm alone in this, so saying I would, but so many comedians, especially ones that people look at as like, wow, that person's very hardworking, they're always doing something. I literally think some of it's almost like, yeah, they have to keep working. Like that's how I'm a workaholic, but it's like, oh, if one day it was just like, I couldn't be working on something, I think I would actually lose my mind. Mm-hmm. Like I would go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to have like everything just
like, and just not being able to do that. So it's crazy. But then he started writing a book like about all of that. And then when his hands stopped working, he wrote it with his feet, and then when his feet stopped working, he would audibly like dictate to someone, and then eventually they'll like end with his eyes. And he wrote a book about his experience with the ALS
with his eyes.
Yeah, because so for the last year and a half, that's when he lost his voice, and he'd communicate by blinking at letters on these different like devices or whiteboards even.
Oh, so they had
spell
like
what you want. Like, hi, I'm hungry. Like, but it would take like an hour to like find out.
Oh, that's devastating.
Probably not hungry because that was a feeding tube at that point, but just like with whatever you want, because your brain is 100% there, you know, there's, you know what's going on. You just can't.
It's not like the nerves aren't going to where they need to go.
You're literally trapped inside your own body. You can't move. You can't even go like turn your head or like change a channel or scratch your face. Like the imagery is just a person completely paralyzed, not moving. Then the muscles, even in your face, like can't, you know, they can't even smile. And then you're like blinking.
So it's just it's muscles.
Yeah.
So do you still have like nerve? I wonder if there's been research done that like, God, are you still like itchy and you're still uncomfortable and there's nothing you can do?
Yeah. I like itched his face a lot or like put a washcloth on his face. You know, I remember stuff like that, but maybe at a certain point that goes away. I don't know, but it's kind of crazy.
Wow. This isn't what Stephen Hawking had, right?
It's actually really similar.
I was like, people probably, I was going to be like, I don't want to ask this, but I'm like, I bet people say this all the time.
Yeah.
It's some in LS or he had,
Yeah,
I'm like MLS, Major League Soccer.
I think it's called, I should check. I think it's called juvenile ALS or like something like that.
I'm looking it up right now because I remember thinking it was ALS and then.
Like I have a stand-up joke that goes.
Oh
like,
yeah. But they just early onset slow progressing form of motor neuron disease.
Yeah.
Also known as amyotrophic
juvenile
lateral sclerosis, but I thought it was something different.
So it's a version of ALS, which is why I don't remember the exact name. I mean, I guess it's what you just said.
Progresses very slowly.
It's like it's a version of ALS, but it's one that you can live with. Like it's a little bit better. Like for instance, someone with standard ALS is not going to live the length of time that. I mean,
he lived so long,
right? And that's because it's not the same thing. But it's very, very close. That's probably the best.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder if they know that. Like, I wonder now if they can recognize, the form you have.
Yeah, they can.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they give your dad a prognosis?
Yeah. I mean, it's just everyone's is usually a few years.
They're just like, it's about this, but maybe longer.
Yeah. Most people 2 to 3 years is like tops is what it is.
Wow.
At least like 3/4 of the people. So, but you know, anything can happen. It was a really good example of outliving the numbers. And it's like so hard because it's important to have that information, I guess, but it's like anything is possible.
Yeah.
Like, he lived so much longer than what they thought.
They thought.
I wonder how much is mental and, you know, your willingness.
I was going to bring that up as like how much is, I mean.
But maybe not. It's like.
Yeah, no, I'm very on the fence and I roll my eyes a lot, but then I try to go like, well, let me at least try the woo if I'm positive. Because then it's like, all right, well, if I really try to be, you know, I'm sure you've heard, it's LA, The Secret, you know, you have to manifest. I've heard that there's research on having the right mindset can make things a little bit better. Like a lot of people who get sick, they just obsess over how sick they are and that they're going to die. And then those people, I'm sure this isn't true across the board, but like often, like if they have a prognosis for something terminal, it's pretty quick. Like, whereas like people with the mindset of like, I can beat this or like I can outlive the things. But it's like, of course you only hear the stories of the people who thought that and did outlive. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, there has to be some people that are like, I'm going to beat the odds and then die the next day or whatever.
Yeah, it can be kind of triggering because there's some people, I think, a lot of it is genetic and what's just going to happen. I think the mental can perhaps prolong something by a little bit, maybe. But not like, okay, I had this mental outlook and then I lived 10 years. Like, I do not believe that.
No.
Yeah.
Was your family religious at all?
My parents are both Jewish.
Okay.
My dad actually was super religious growing up. He went to like Hebrew school like every single day, but then he had a lot of issues like when he was diagnosed of, well, what does that mean? And who is there someone or something that planned this or not? Is this random? I think it's something a lot of sick people kind of
I'm
grapple
sure.
with. Mm-hmm.
Or anyone who goes through a trauma, even like being the person losing someone like that, to go like, well, why? If God loves me, why would? I definitely like.
Yeah, what do you think about
that? I can say for sure that trauma definitely pushed me to stop being religious. But it's hard to say if I would have just through I question everything. So I don't know if I would have ended up kind of going away from it anyway. But it was like enough death and loss and like, because I had a lot of friends die in like high school.
Really?
Yeah. It's very absurd. Alaska is like, I don't know. People drop like flies there. Like murders and suicides and drug overdose. I honestly think the darkness makes people like it exacerbates mental illness probably. And then also like substance abuse because it's depressing and then just in general depressing. I have so many friends who had like lost parents to suicide and like friends who have committed suicide and just I forgot the point of this. Oh, so and then my dad like leaving the family made
That's
a lot
huge
of
deal.
Yeah, so it's just, if you're indoctrinated into I grew up in like a Catholic church and it's just like this whole idea of like Jesus loves you and God, we're all God's children. It was just this kind of like, well, even if he's real, like I'm not going to worship someone who lets that happen. And now I'm sort of like, I went staunch atheist for a while. And then, not to the point that I like talk to people about it. I didn't need to assemble about my atheism. It's like, yeah, we get it. You believe in nothing. Shut the fuck up. It's like, you don't have to ruin this person's happiness just because you think they're an idiot. But now I feel like I fall in like agnostic. I don't know what I believe, but like I've done mushrooms and I believe that there's definitely some sort of energetic connection between all of us. And I don't know if it's like, it's fun to think about like, maybe, like you ascend and like you come back if you haven't finished your journey, or like when I get really high on mushrooms, I'm like, I think I come from that star. And it's always the same star. I'm like, I feel connected to it, which like we all come from stardust, like biologically speaking, how we evolved, I guess. But I don't know. I'm just like maybe. Right. I think organized religion is a way to like control people and in my opinion, ridiculous. But I also get that if that's something that, makes someone happy, or if that's like, I don't want to fucking pull the cord out for somebody. It's like, I don't think you should have to be told that you'll go to hell to be a nice person. But like, if the only thing keeping you from murdering me is that you think you're going to go to hell, then I hope you always think you're going to go to hell. You know?
Right.
Like if you're just like, well, I would, but God doesn't like it.
Something I think is really complicated though is just how you're raised, the influences you have when you're so young. I wonder, can you ever overcome some of those influences? And some people do and convert and whatever, but a lot of people, I think, if you're ingrained something by everyone in your life that you love and respect and are told this is true or this isn't true, that's very, very, very difficult to undo. So it's like, friends that are super religious, it's like, but if I grew up like that, I probably would be too. Or would people like you and I find our way out? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's so easy to judge from your like.
Right.
I took humble brag. I did an online like religious studies course through Harvard.
Wait, really?
Yeah, for free. There's a website called
exists?
edX.org, who I wish would sponsor this podcast. But you can do. It's like. A lot of places are just trialing courses before they make them either online courses at their actual university. I don't know how it works.
Whoa.
But you can do these courses. And I did this religious tradition study. And the whole like first segment, because it was like 6 actual different programs. But it talked about, it's this word that they 100% made up. It's called situatedness. And that's sort of what I base my podcast on. I always do like a disclaimer at the end for every guest to go like, hey, like when I do the outro and stuff, you won't be here for it. It's just what I tag on the end, but it's a reminder that like whoever I'm interviewing isn't speaking on behalf of anyone else who's had that experience. But situatedness is just like how your entire experience, like, or a person's entire experience leads them to what they believe. That it's like, you're never going to fully understand, you know, why someone is a devoutly conservative Muslim if you didn't grow up
Right.
in their, you know, family, in their neighborhood, and just across the board, all of it. So
That makes so much sense.
well, it's good. And that's what gives you empathy, is that you know, if you can realize that you're like, okay, yeah, I don't agree with you at all, but I didn't have all the voices telling me this is the way and the truth. And if everyone you trust is being like, I mean, that's literally how religions thrive is, I mean, in my opinion, not to be the most curmudgeon-y person, but it's like, yeah, if you want your kid to be a Christian, you have to start brainwashing them early. Like, dunk them in that water. Tell them it's saving them.
Is there a stand-up moment around this? Because I feel like
I'm not doing a bit on you, but as I'm saying it, I'm like, I probably should talk about this. But let's get back to you. Let's get back to all the fun of losing a parent.
Death, blood, sweat, tears.
So you touched on it a little, but like looking back now and thinking about how, you know, you visit him like once a week, do you have any like remorse, or do you wish you would have, like, if you could give advice to someone, would you go more?
Yeah. So I feel like advice for someone, I mean, at that age, I'm also someone in life that I don't believe in regrets. Like, I don't regret
absolutely
what I did, but I would say anyone who's losing someone, or anyone who has a friend or family member with an illness, like, not being afraid to pick up the phone more often than you'd think, or even if you only have 20 minutes, it's like,
yeah,
no one ever has an hour and a half to talk on the phone. So it's like, okay, I have 20 minutes, or just sending like texts or emails. I also think, like, a piece of advice is sometimes just saying, like, thinking of you, or I saw this, it was funny or interesting, and sometimes like tagging like no worries on a reply, or like saying you don't need to respond, I think is nice.
Yeah, so that they don't feel, because that can probably get overwhelming too when you're tired and not feeling great.
Yeah. And also so therapy, I never had a therapist at all. And like, my mom at the time also had breast cancer, which is kind of another story. But
at the time,
they were both diagnosed the same year. Yeah. So like,
so when you were like 8, your mom got diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's still with us.
Yeah. So then she had it for a few years.
Oh yeah, we said that at the beginning. I forgot if that was on the podcast or not.
I read too. So hers came back. So she was in remission for 17 years, which is a long time. And it came back a few years ago.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. It's kind of a whole other topic, but what I have learned from all of that is, like, if you have an illness in your family, it's really important for a child to have either a traditional therapist or some kind of adult figure to speak to that isn't the parent.
Because as a kid, you're like, I don't want to burden my parents with my feelings. They're sick. It's also if you have a sick, any illness. I was gonna say a sibling.
Yes,
as well. Because you can, I think parents can unintentionally neglect the healthy child when there's a sick child.
Totally. All kinds of stuff like that.
And so you didn't have a therapist.
No. So I think, you know, and then in like, what you resist persists. So there was just issues that you have. I mean, all kids have some kind of issues, but
of course
my issues like around guys, and like even just like not having a super present father figure, and also like not acknowledging how I really felt about things, because I always told people everything's fine.
Yeah.
And like it actually manifested in like dating issues, as does everything.
As does so much. Wait, did it like affect like your ability to date, or the kind of people you date?
Well, yeah, both. Like this is also really common, girls in their like teens and early 20s, but I really was like so into guys that weren't really like validating my feelings, that weren't really there, because I saw my dad once a week, and that was like an amazing love that I knew. So if I only saw a guy like on occasion, or you're like, that's great, occasion, I thought that was great.
Mickey talks to me once a week. That's what you do when you love someone.
And like, it's like, I was so young. All young girls, like,
of course we all go through
things, but yeah.
But I'm sure it had its own like element. Did you ever start going to therapy?
Yeah. So when my mom got diagnosed the second time, it just brought up so many feelings actually around my dad, just kind of flashbacks to like hospitals and diagnosis and all that stuff. So I was like, I finally was like, I can't handle this without. And then I finally started talking to someone, and it's been so helpful. I feel like a completely different person. And I think, wow, like this would have been really great earlier. on.
Yeah. You know what though? It's like, I think a lot of parents,
They're doing the best.
yeah, they're doing the best they can. And like, and even there have been stigmas around therapy for like years. It's really only now starting to, I mean, I think a lot of people were going to therapy back in like the 90s, early 2000s and not going like, this means I'm crazy. But I think there is that stigma on like, well, you only go to therapy if you're like a lunatic or something's really wrong. And I could see our parent go like, well, there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
It's like, I'm just going to add one more thing to your calendar. It's already hard enough, especially for a parent who's sick and then caring for a sick parent.
Yeah.
And now that's one more thing that she has to get a child to. It's a bummer, but accessibility to that stuff is changing too. There's like teletherapy.
Yes.
So that's promising for other people.
Yeah.
We've already been fucked up, but lucky for them.
Or I think even just like like having access to blogs and podcasts can teach parents more about the effects that their kids are, the mental effects of all of this that they
Absolutely
just didn't know that.
Or can teach an individual about.
Right.
Like someone could hear someone, I don't know, someone could be going through a similar thing and go like, oh, wow, I never thought I should go to therapy, but maybe I should.
Yeah. Or even if you don't have access to a therapist, I really think some kind of adult that's not in the immediate family unit, an adult that does not live in the house. It literally could be an aunt, uncle, or grandparent, or a family friend, or a religious figure, or a teacher, or like a big brother or sister. Someone that your child can talk to semi-regularly throughout the year about their experience, specifically about the illness. I'm like a big advocate for that, even if it's not traditional therapy.
Yeah, no, it's just an outlet, if nothing else. Like if you can't afford to go to a therapist, having a friend, that's great. Fuck, just had a question and I lost it.
Oh, sorry, I probably rambled.
No, it's okay. It's because I was so engaged. Having two parents who have had, obviously very severe illnesses, how has that affected your attitude toward like health stuff and death? Like, because I know some people become like hypochondriacs or I can joke about death very easily because I've lost people, and sometimes people with, close people who die some people are too triggered and some people are like, yeah, I can make horrendous jokes about death. Do you think that's affected you at all?
Yeah, it's definitely similar to you. Like I feel like I'm like a totally different person if I'm doing stand-up or comedy about it. Like I wouldn't be in this like state of seriousness like at all.
Absolutely.
So like definitely talking about it on stage, and just I've only been vocal about it the last couple of years. Again, like my mom's diagnosis was the proponent for all of this.
Kind of triggered everything.
Yeah, literally.
Did that get you into stand-up comedy?
Like yes and no. Kind of. I'd tried stand up before, but I had never done it the way I'm doing it as of the past year and a half. So yeah, it was a journey that I tried, went away, and then came back. But I also think for some people, age, I just when I started stand up when I was 21, the crap I had joked about was so dumb.
Surfacey. Of course. I'm like, I got so drunk. How drunk was I? Or just, I did 10 minutes on my asshole.
I actually would love to.
Which I still I want to bring back.
But you've been doing stand up for such a long time. How did you start getting into stand up?
I was just always the funny kid in class, which in retrospect was 100% a coping mechanism. Humor's if I really pull apart why I do stand up, it's 100% coping with fear. I joke about horrible things, if I were to psychoanalyze every terrible, inappropriate thing I've made a joke about, it's I'm afraid of that. Or I don't know, I'm sure there's some sort of, the classic, I was neglected, I was abused. But it's for me, humor is a way to deal with things. And it's weird to me when people get sensitive about, especially if it's your own trauma, because it triggers them, don't joke about this or don't joke about that. It's yeah, for me, especially things as dark as death or mental health stuff, losing other people, suicide, even things abuse across, any type, or even I understand why people joke about some political stuff, even though I don't like to do that because I get so fucking riled up. But things that are out of my control, that I can't undo, that I couldn't have stopped, I couldn't have, made someone healthier. I couldn't have, been there at the right time. It's like a way to cope with it for me. It's like, even like with my own mental health stuff, it's like, okay, well, I don't know if I can get rid of the way my brain works because of trauma. Obviously, I still am, trying to work on it from like a healthy standpoint. But it's like, okay, if I'm going to have to work within the confines of, having sort of like anxiety, depression, PTSD, how can I make myself not feel bad about it? So for me, I don't know, it's a coping mechanism. Is that, what's humor to you? Some people, like everyone loves to laugh. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
But did you ever, like, are your parents funny?
Great question. But no, that's so cool. I'm so interested. I have so many more questions about like your stand-up journey and like life and everything, because you're so successful and like doing so many shows.
Oh my God.
Crushing it, traveling. Like it's so cool.
Oh my
It's
God.
really
Thank you.
exciting.
It's a grind.
Do you know how big of a deal it is though? Like, do you ever remind yourself?
It's a thing I have to actively work on because because I'm a workaholic and like, I'm always like, what's the next thing? Because I just want to keep creating that. It's easy to, and because just the industry in general is so up and down, like you're going to have highs and lows. And for me, when it's just like calm, it's like nothing's going wrong, but I don't have a big thing going on right now. That can feel like a sudden low for me. So yeah, I have to constantly remind myself that like, because I'm so hung up on not wanting to I never want to become like egotistical or whatever. I've seen people get like a tiny TV credit and become a monster. And it's like, what's wrong with you? No one's even seen that TV show.
I know.
Like, and even if they have, but like literally no one has. But I do have to go like, oh, it's actually a huge deal that I'm a paid regular at the Comedy Store.
Huge.
Because I think almost anything for anyone at a certain point, once you've done it long enough, it just feels like your day to day. And it's easy to forget that like, this is a thing that most people never achieve. Or like, oh, I had a #1 album on iTunes. And then I go like, wait, I had a #1 album on iTunes?
Wait, that's amazing.
So it's like, but it's easy to just go, oh, I feel like, everyone does that. Cause then you start comparing yourself to, especially like being at the store. It's like, I'm the bottom of the barrel as far as, and I think it's all great comedians, but as far as like notable check the box achievements of the things that you're supposed to want, like the specials and the whatever, I don't have all those credits and I don't even know what I want in terms of all that. But it's easy to go like, oh, that person's fucking, they're doing all this. Like, if I'm in LA that's what I love about the road. If I'm in LA for too long, I start comparing myself to people who are doing things that like I don't even think I want to do. I'll be like, they got a sitcom, they're hosting a pop culture show, and I'm like, I don't care about pop culture. Why am I upset? I was like, no one even asked. It's like, of course they didn't. Like, what are you fucking?
That's so relatable.
It's so, I know. And then it's like, I can't believe they're doing a cat food commercial, and I'm like, what? Yeah. Who cares? So yeah, it's easy, I think, to forget. It's easier to look in general at the negatives.
Well, you should come surround yourself with like my level, not to like level people, but just like my level of like comedian friends. Like you're so like doing what a lot of people would want to do. So you should come step over here for a second and you'll be like, wow, I'm amazing.
Well, yeah. And it is always like so flattering. And like, that's what I love going into like Lisa's classes. When she'll like ask me to come like speak or like do punch up, and I don't do it a lot. I actually should hit her up because I love doing it. First of all, I love punching up jokes. Like I literally just started. I don't know why I haven't been doing this regularly, but I'm like, people are like paying me to they send me sets and I like give them notes and stuff. So it's like a remote like side income, which is good because comedy's so up and down, especially as someone who straight up only does stand up. Yeah. But I love jokes. My brain has always worked in jokes. Like so many of the things I quote learned, like I did Lisa's class years ago. The things that she taught about like how to make jokes, like all of that is just how I didn't know there was like when she was saying a formula, I was like, it's not a thing I think about. It's just how my brain's always worked. I love doing punch up.
That's
like,
so cool.
Love it, love it, love it. And it is cool meeting people who like, you know, like a lot of times in the class, they'll have just heard about me because I'm coming to the class, but then like, that's so cool that you do that. And then every once in a while I meet people who are like, oh my God, I come to the store. I love, like only in the last like couple of years, like just a few, it means a lot from anybody, but when a young like female comedian is like, you're my favorite comedian, which is, and I'm not saying it happens all the time.
Yeah.
No, but like just a handful of times I've had people go like, you're like genuinely like my favorite person to watch or my favorite comedian. I really look up to you. Like that's crazy to me. Cause I'm like, me? But it's so cool that I'm like, oh, I am now in the position that like the comedians I look up to were in. Like when I first started, I was like, oh my God. And I'm still a huge fan. Like Sean Polofsky.
Love.
Where I was like, she's so cool. She does the Comedy Store. And like, oh my God. And it's like, oh my God, I'm doing that now. It's just interesting.
It's so impressive too that you like just focus on stand-up and you're successful and how much you do and like paid in just stand-up and not also doing all these other things. Like that's really, really amazing.
Well, I think some of my like achievements in stand-up, Freudian slip. I'm standoff. I don't know. So many people have been like, why don't you do the other things? Are you afraid? Is it people like get in my head that, oh, maybe you're self-sabotaging. And I'm like, I think I just like the live performance and I'm trying to do the other stuff now. But like with stand-up, I never had to like force myself to get into it. Like I just love it so much that it's easy for me to lean in.
And a lot of people I think try and do stand-up because they think it's going to help them with the other
thing.
Things.
And I used to be like, oh fuck that, they're just fucking, oh you got your 5 minutes when I was like newer. Oh, really? But I don't begrudge people who are like, you know, trying to get in where you fit in or whatever. But for me, stand-up is the thing. And so the fact that I love it so much made it easier for me to kind of put on blinders to everything else and lean in. And I think because I put all my energy toward it.
I really respect people that actually pick and choose and stick with the one thing.
When it's in LA, you kind of are made to feel like you have to do it all.
Right.
And when I made a commitment to just like, I was like, you know, at least for now, I'm just going to lean into stand up. I think that's when things really started going like taking off for me. And I think that would be true about anyone. It's like, it's also hard to pick just one thing. There's so much fun stuff to do. And if you have a creative brain, there's so many ways you could exercise that. There's so many things that I come up with that like maybe aren't suited for stand up, but would be funnier in another medium. Yeah. And it's like definitely, of course, possible to do more than one thing. But I think, you know, all we have is 100% energy. And so if you're doing two things at max, you're giving them 50%.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly. And so that's actually been a problem with me in the last like year. I wanted to do all these fun, like, let me try other stuff. Overcommitting. Ugh. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm giving everything 10% because I'm dying. Like I am so tired.
Right.
And then the one thing I love that started, I don't want to say suffering, but my writing and stuff slowed down immensely. And then when the other things I tried like kind of didn't pan out, then I was fucking mad at myself for like, oh, I should have been just writing. Ugh.
But it's also so human. We're going to have different interests and stuff.
And it's all about balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of balance, let's get back to your dad.
No, I'm so interested. I'm like, this is an interview all about
I'm like, God. Let me see. I have some questions from a couple listeners. And okay, is disease. So my question was, okay, we covered that. Do you feel like did your dad ever express to you, probably not because you're his child, but like any like of his like mental emotional struggles around, I say probably not, like my mom didn't spew all of her problems on me. Love you, Mom. Around having ALS and like how hard it was?
Towards the end, a little more so like when I was like 17, 18, yeah, he would talk about like how, you know, I remember him talking about how life is short. I mean, hopefully not that short.
Yeah, you're like, well, for you.
Yeah.
God.
But talking about how, you know, you only have one life and I've had such a, you know, difficult last decade and I really wish for you to, you know, live the wildest whatever.
Just live your best life, basically, like cherish it.
Which was so that really stuck with me. And like, it's interesting how like I have a younger sister. So like how he influenced us is like, he was a lawyer and she now is in law school, going to be a lawyer. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I took like the opposite, more like public talking about it, funny approach. But it's like,
Well, even just but I mean, even with losing a parent, I feel like just that like last nugget of encouragement, I imagine just going like you're only gonna get to do this once, like do what makes you happy. I'm gonna cry.
yeah, he was super supportive. But then it's like really cool. But then it's sad because I'm like, wow, what would he have thought about this? I wish he could see me talk about this or him.
Yeah.
Maybe not all the death stuff about it, but maybe.
I know he's like, okay, you could light it up a little.
But yeah, I mean, who knows what I would have done? Like, I really don't know if I would have fully. I mean, the second I graduated, I'm lucky that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Not that it's like all going amazing all the time.
Well, it's always going to be up and down, but I have always been a big proponent of like what a gift it is to know what you want to do.
Did you always know as well?
I knew I wanted to be in the comedic realm. I thought like SNL sketch, like, I mean, in high school, I ran the high school assemblies and I was class clown and I just like loved making people laugh.
Amazing.
And I did that through college, but I was going to college like just in case you got to get my degree or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I almost wish I would have had the courage or been given the advice or the like understanding tools to go like, fucking college was so fun. I made so much friends, but like I would have been fine. You know, I would have been in a lot less debt.
Yeah.
But
A lot of people do respect, though. I think people who have degrees respect people that have degrees.
yeah, but it's like, fuck you. Get over yourself that you just spent how much money or your parents spent money for you to get
So true.
Especially if you're not doing something medical, it's like, I guess good for you.
It should be a lot more affordable. I mean, how much it costs is a huge issue.
Is insane.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the idea that some people go and get like degrees in philosophy for no reason. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? Just because though, like you're saying, people respect you just because you have, and it is honestly, I think a way of just, as far as like getting into a career, like a standard career is like showing that you're able to like finish a bureaucratic system of like, I can,
Right. That's true.
like red tape bullshit. But
Yeah.
I did learn, like, there's things that I carry over from my college education that I think come natural, but realistically it's like, oh, actually that's something I learned because I took like courses in public relations, not knowing what I wanted to do, but being like, that'd be fun to get to like talk to the newspapers and like, I don't know. I was double majoring in PR and mechanical engineering. And I was like, which one do I have to think the least about? Cool. I'm going to finish with that. PR one by a landslide.
Wow.
But there's things from that have actually helped me in my comedy.
Right.
And if I had paid more attention in class, I probably would have more things from that. But I was hungover half the time.
Fair.
But yeah, no. So I, throughout college, was like, well, I'm going to do comedy. I thought like SNL and stuff. And I would write we had like skits for my sorority for these like silly competitions and stuff. And I'd write all those and you're so funny, blah, blah, blah. And then by my senior year, I was like, I don't know you can't just like walk on to Saturday Night Live.
When did you start doing stand-up?
I got up the first time my last semester of my senior year.
Nice.
But the minute I was just like, well, that's how people get to SNL.
Right.
As if, I mean, it is. There are people who are stand-ups on SNL.
Yeah.
But the like first laugh I got, it was like something lit up in me. And I was like, it was like I found the thing I was looking for. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do, which is so corny. And as someone who's always been a bit of a logical thinker, and it killed me that I had that like, I'm meant to do this, but that's how it felt. What about you?
I think I
I
felt
was like, I derailed. Wait, did you go, so after high school, did you go straight into like entertainment based?
No, I went to college.
Okay.
Yeah. Theater school at USC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dana
LOL.
Moon went there.
Who?
Dana Moon. She's a comedian.
Should I totally know who that is?
No, she was years before you. I mean, she's
Okay.
great. She's awesome. Check her out. She's funny.
Cool. Gonna Google her stat. But yeah, I always knew I always knew. I mean, it's just weird too. I identify with like being logical but then having that feeling like I was in like 3 musicals a year from when I was 5. So
God, I love musicals. I
But it
just
was
wrote
totally
one.
different. You did?
Yeah, I did a
What?
live reading of it at the Improv in December.
What?
Yeah.
What is it about?
It's 2 kids go to hell and they're trying to get back to their family. It's very dark, actually, but
Wait, that sounds amazing.
my summation of it. Yeah, me and do you know Jeffrey Baldinger?
I know who that is.
He's like at the Improv a lot.
Yeah.
Very funny comedian. He and I co-wrote it, and so we did a live reading. And by next year, we want to do a staged dress rehearsal and then figure out how to. We're flying by the seat of our pants, 100%. But, anyways, I've derailed so much.
cool.
I just love musicals.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I can't wait to, I would love to see your stage dress rehearsal at some
Yay.
point. Yeah. But I don't know. It's like weird. Yeah. I just loved being the funny parts, from that age. And then you see where it takes you.
Yeah, were you always the funny one in your family? Like comedic relief?
Yeah.
Is there any part of you that felt like you had to do that? Like that it kind of...
I don't know. I feel like it's just, some people, it's just, it's just naturally who you are or it's not. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I 100% agree that like, you can teach the formats of like this type of talking makes a joke. Sorry, I was picking up my dog. But yeah, there's people who are naturally funny and there are people who are terribly unfunny, and it is, boy, is it hard to watch those people want to be a comedian.
Right. Right.
And I'm not even saying that it can't be done.
Right.
But like, I mean, I know a guy who I dated him years ago, but comedy is like the way he approaches his comedy is 100% like a formula because he's not, and he's like the least funny person in conversation I've ever met. And I don't know if it's because he's just so polite, he's not saying what he's thinking, or he really is just like not funny. And it's just so interesting to me.
But he was funny on stage.
Yeah. His comedy's like fine.
If you're
It's good.
intelligent, I think it's really overlooked how much it's not discussed that your IQ has a big effect on your ability to write and deliver jokes.
100%.
Like if you're really smart, you're gonna figure out the comedy thing a lot faster. Than
Absolutely. Almost every great comedian I know is like highly intelligent, and then and some of the funniest people I know don't do comedy, and they're brilliant.
Right.
I have an uncle who's like the chief medical, he's like oversees an entire hospital. He's a doctor who's like in charge of the hospital.
Wow.
And just, I mean, not that, you don't have to be a doctor to be smart, but like a very brilliant man and hilarious, just so quick. Like the banter we have is amazing. My friend Matt he's one of my best friends from college. Completely, I don't know. He's like lost job wise. He's like, I am going to be a nurse. Like he bounces around, but he's fucking brilliant and insanely funny. A lot of lawyers are hilarious.
Yes.
I mean, because to be a good lawyer, you also have to be able to see the sides of everything.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of what comedy is.
Yeah. I actually, like in terms of my two parents, my dad would always joke, like he was funny. But it was like, I wish I could like talk to him now about it, but no. And then in the book that he wrote about his life, I read the first chapter the year he died, and then I never finished.
Is it published?
No. So add it to the list of things. My friend wants me to that works in audiobook. She's like, record the audiobook, release it. But I'm like, I've never even read it. So one step at a time. But
okay. Because I don't know really well, but my boyfriend also has a friend in publishing if you want.
Oh my God.
Me to try to help you with that.
Would it be weird though if I recorded it because I'm like a young girl and his is like from an older guy perspective? I might do it anyway. Anyways, that's a whole other story.
I mean, you could just do a preface with that, I think.
Right. Because I'm like, I could hire someone, but that'd be weird. I'm like,
you're like, and then in the last chapter, sound like you have ALS. And you're like, what? Yeah, just kind of mumble a little bit slower. And they're like, what? Just, you can only put it on the setting of like half speed.
And just don't talk for the last chapter because he didn't.
Yeah. And then it's like the rest silent. You just have to read.
It's silent. But
it's just quiet.
In the first chapter though, he had said like, I wish I wrote plays. And that was something I will never forget. I was like, what? He like wished he wrote a play. I was like, wouldn't that be a cool play to write about a person
who like wished they wrote a play?
So now my other friends are like, you should write a play about that. I was like, no, it's too much.
I feel like for me, a giant project like that, like something that's not like a podcast is ongoing.
Yeah.
Other than my stand-up, I'm telling myself like one major project a year.
Totally believe in that. Yes.
Because what happens is I'll try to do more than that, and then they suffer. Like I'm doing that musical.
Yeah. What are your 2020 projects?
I'm working my own hour,
Okay.
my musical, and then this, and I have another podcast with Nicole Amy Schreiber.
My gosh, you have another podcast?
We just launched it, but it's not formula. It's just the two of us shooting the shit. We pick a topic every week, and we just rattle. No
Great.
thought goes into it. Although there's still like the social media and the promotion, and it's all hell.
It's more than you would possibly think.
No,
It's like, that won't be that much work. Oh, wow.
it's so much.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
much.
so those are the things you're working on for this year.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then
that's great.
but it's also, in theory, I have a pilot that I'm sort of trying to sell, and I'm like, I am trying to do that, but I don't know, because so many ideas pop up, and then having to go like, nope, I can't do that right now. When you get excited about something,
Oh, yeah.
is like hard.
But it sounds like you have some clarity. Like, you know what you want to focus on this year.
Yeah, we'll see how long until.
And how often are you gone? Aren't you gone like a lot of the time?
I do a lot
Yeah.
of road. Yeah. I do a ton of road, so the balance has been interesting.
Is it
And
nice to kind of be by yourself sometimes?
I love it. I didn't think I would,
Mm-hmm.
because like I thought I would like spiral and be like, so many people like, you're gonna hate it. It's so lonely, and I'm
Right.
like, oh, you're projecting. I love it. I didn't know how much I liked being alone. It's like zen. It's nice because, I can chill out a little bit. More importantly, I can get things done. Whereas in LA, there's just always someone who wants. And I don't mind. I love talking to people. I love hanging out. But like, there's always something to do. Somewhere to go. Oh, we should go to this show. If I don't have a show, it's so and so's
Events,
birthday.
shows, yes.
You do want to grab a coffee. So it's nice to like be, or it's like, well, I can't. I'm not in town, so
Right.
I can't let myself get like too distracted because it's impossible. So that's nice, but it's my reasoning for liking it is probably just pure workaholism. I'm like, I can write, I can catch up on my material, I'm not relaxing.
Do you have a favorite place that you've been, or an unexpected show or city that you never thought you would love, but you
That I never thought I would love?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think.
or just like anywhere? That
Chicago's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big city, and I feel like anyone going, you didn't think you'd love Chicago. I just didn't think anything of Chicago. And I love it. The people are nice. The food's great. I'm trying to think of like smaller cities I've been to. Nothing's jumping out at me, but I've had a lot of fun in small towns. Asheville's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
The festival there.
Yeah. That's the
Very
first time I
cool.
went there was years ago for Laugh Your Asheville. I think it was like the first or second festival.
Oh, wow.
And I've done it twice way back then. And I just was like, a festival, cool. And festivals are always fun. Like you can get a jaded look at a city. I mean, not jaded. You can get a skewed look at a city because you're having so much fun. It's all these
Yes.
comedians. There's usually like free food, free drinks. It's like a nonstop party. So you don't even know if the city's good. But Asheville itself is a cool. I didn't know that there was like a cool progressive hub of North Carolina.
How far away is Asheville from, say, Raleigh, Durham, or Charlotte?
I think it's about 4 hours from Raleigh because I just did Raleigh and Asheville in a row on this
cool.
little East Coast tour because I did a one-nighter tour on the East Coast.
Oh my God, you're so hip. You're so cool.
Thank you. Wait, we've no more about me.
I love it. I'm like the host in me is like, I'm going to find out. I love, like, you're so interesting.
That's
I
so
wanna hear.
funny. You're so interesting though. Do you have to get, or do you out of whatever, do they recommend like you testing yourself? Can you test yourself for ALS?
I could talk about genetic testing for a full hour, which we will not do.
Have you
in
done
this moment.
23andMe?
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. How much time do we have?
Not much.
Not much. Okay. The bullet points version.
We're going to have to do a follow-up episode at some point.
I'm next week. I mean, I don't know when
We'll
this
figure
comes
it out.
Oh, no, did not mean next week. Are you
No, I
available?
mean, no, but
Okay.
we'll get it all.
Next week, I'm hosting this event on Melrose with a genetics counselor and girls like our age, 20s, 30s that
Have parents, mothers with breast cancer? Is that what it is?
who have the gene that means they'll likely
The
to get breast
BRCA?
cancer. Yeah.
Do you have it?
No. Or excuse me. So
Or have you not been tested?
I have not been tested, but since my mom doesn't have it, makes me as equal to anyone else.
Oh, because there's other ways that it can happen. So that's just okay.
But I highly recommend that people take a look at genetic, like literally even just Googling genetics counselors, what do they do? You can meet with one without even getting testing. So just because you meet with a genetics counselor doesn't mean you are obligated to test, but they can talk to you about what the tests mean and which genes are available for you to test.
And how likely having that gene.
And my short answer is the BRCA gene, also known as BRCA. We all have it, but if you have a mutation, it means you have an 80% chance of getting breast cancer. And about 1 in 40 Jewish girls have it. And not a lot of people know this, which is why I'm hosting this next week about it.
I'm Jewish in my genetics.
Fully Jewish?
No, I'm like 40%. I did 23andMe. I found out when we can't talk about me anymore. I'm from a sperm bank. But so I was like, I want to know what I am because I don't know my actual father's genetics. So that's how I found out. But
wow.
Wow.
So there's options, and there's a lot of genes also that will tell you have like a 20 to 40% chance of getting a specific disease, which my personal opinion is that's not enough of a reason to find out. But with BRCA specifically 80%, and about 1 in 300 or 400 girls, if you're not Jewish, has it too. And having been the daughter of someone with breast cancer for such a long time, if you can find out, I think that you should. Then you can get surgery.
Preventative measures.
Or screen earlier. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my own podcast talks about this stuff.
Oh, okay. And do you do like annual testing on yourself since she doesn't have that gene? Do you do other like screenings and stuff?
Yeah. So I'm still going to test for BRCA before I'm 30. So like in the next couple of years, just because it's the fact that 1 in 40 Jewish people have it regardless. Like that's high. And I recommend people get your internist or your regular
your intern.
Whoa!
Not your intern. Good Lord, do not blame us when you get Me Too'd.
Your regular doctor or your gynecologist, just to like literally ask them to feel
you up,
your breasts.
You can feel me up.
And then you're gonna find out. No, but like seriously do it. And also get a pap smear at least like once every other year. I do it every year. It's just like,
I need to go back. They tried to be like, they changed it to 3 years. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. But I've read too many horror stories about fucking
I mean, if you already
cervical
should go
cancer.
To a gyno every year. So just get one. Like, just do it.
It's also like, I've made too many questionable choices to not be, I mean, it's got to pop up on the pipeline somewhere. Oh God. I'm like, no, I can't risk it. Fuck. We are crunched for time.
Yep.
Let me
about it.
Really quick. Is there a test like could do anything for ALS?
You would not want. I mean, they don't test for it, and thank God, because you don't want.
You don't want to just know you have that gene. Yeah, I have a friend whose dad has Parkinson's, and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna get tested to see if I have the gene," and I'm like, sorry, he's taking my keys.
No problem.
That was my roommate in the background. Hey. And I'm like, why are you you're already so neurotic also. Like, why are you going to do that to yourself? I did 23andMe and I have one gene that is now like making me feel insane. And it's like a slight risk of late onset Alzheimer's. And I'm like, well, what is late? Like, what if I have it now? Sometimes I forget things. And it's like, because then because you may never get anything you have a gene for.
My personal opinion is I don't recommend testing for genes where it's like 20, 30, 40%.
Especially something incurable.
And especially if there's not preventative measures you can take.
Yeah, if there's nothing you can do.
And you're like in your 20s or 30s, like I don't recommend it. But if it's something like BRCA where it's 80%, then I do. But do your research about what works for you, y'all. 23andMe, I have a lot of issues with. Yeah. Because it's just like giving info to people who don't understand that.
All the, Oh, 100%. I feel the same. Really quick, I'm going to rattle off this story because it's crazy. So I'm wondering if she thinks there's an element. So this is just from a listener. Someone wants to know if you think there's an element of exposure to ALS because her boyfriend's best friend lost his mom to ALS. And then right after she passed away, his dad ended up with ALS and died. And she died rather quickly, so did the dad. The doctors were studying to see if they were exposed to something since they were childhood sweethearts and been together like for so long. And this person read that soldiers out of similar platoons in Desert Storm had many men come to develop ALS, which is a big reason they believe it might be exposure related. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Wow. What is this person's name? I want to shout them out. Or is that what? No, we're not.
I mean, it's her. Shit. I tell them
that. We can take this out. Okay, great.
I can let you know later if she's cool with it. It doesn't matter. It's on a Facebook group. Her name's Tiffany.
Okay. But just wanted to shout out to this person and say I'm sorry about her experience.
Yes. I'm very sorry.
I think there is a lot more research coming out. And again, please, no one listen to me. I'm obviously
This is not
a
medical
healthcare
advice.
professional. I personally think it is possible. Even like the athlete theory is like, are all these people on fields or turfs exposed? For instance,
something.
My dad was a college, he played basketball in college, so not a professional athlete, but like
Constantly
serious
around.
enough.
Or could it be spread through like sweat in the, I don't know.
There's some theories about like maybe concussions or head injuries, which makes more sense. But the exposure thing, like I don't know for sure, but I mean, it's definitely possible, unfortunately. Yeah. And things like that, when people are been together that long, like, I mean, with any illness, not just ALS, like if your water, there's certain parts of the world where water is polluted, certain parts of America, if you live near a cemetery where your water is, there's things like that.
There's so many things.
So I'm really sorry to hear that though. But yeah, I mean, I think it is possible.
Yeah. Me too.
Or maybe it's not, or maybe it was just totally genetically random. Like I don't know.
It could happen. Yeah. I mean, like it's,
I don't know.
Who knows? That's so sad. We'll have to do another podcast. Were you able to say goodbye to your dad?
I was.
Yeah.
I knew the bad news is a few times because it's like, this is the last day.
Oh God.
Shocker. But
I'm sorry for laughing.
No, it's funny. It really is funny. It's like, but eventually, yes.
And do you remember like the last thing he said to you, or like last nugget of?
It's like, we'll have to part 2, but the one sentence version is he made a joke, again, spelling out words with his eyes, so LOL, about like that I would probably marry Brad Pitt. That was one of the last things he said to me. And then he was like, ha ha. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, okay.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. I made some speech about like,
move over, Jennifer Aniston.
I was like, I'm going to be fine. Like, I'm going to figure it out. I like said something like that. And he was like, oh, like you'll marry Brad Pitt, hot, like something like that. I don't know why, but that's
just
what I remember.
A joke. That's really cute. All right. Where can people find you? I want more info from you.
At Instagram @_Chels who else. That's CHELS who else ELSE. So that's probably where I'm most active. Website chelswhoelse.com. Podcast Dying of Laughter on all the podcast places.
Amazing. Any last nuggets of information or thoughts you want to share with people?
I think I overwhelmed people.
It's okay if not.
My last nugget of wisdom is, life is short and it's a gift. And if there's someone who has either lost someone or has an illness, like shoot them a text, shoot them an email, just like say you're thinking about them. I think that can go a long way.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for hosting this.
Yay! All right, bye, idiots.
Bye.
There you go. Chelsea London Lloyd, ALS, and growing up dealing with a family member who has that. What a bright, fun, and strong young lady. Truly a fun interview. She is delightful and very easy to talk to, and I appreciate her opening up about that. If you like this podcast episode and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Give us a rate and review. If this is your first time listening, maybe you didn't like this one. That's okay. There's a range of topics. I encourage you to give me the benefit of the doubt that maybe it's a topic you just didn't like, and scroll through and find a topic you do like. Look at some of the top episodes. I interviewed my brother right after his, not to circle back to that, but right after his overdose. I had Dulce Sloan on for a 3-hour episode talking about being a Black woman in America. I interviewed a guest with dissociative identity disorder. I've asked Ari Shafir endless questions about being a Jew. A little bit of something for everybody, and we're hoping to add more and more. I don't know why I say we. It's me and my soul. Maybe that's what it is. My heart and my mind want to give you more interviews. Real quick, big thank you to my League of Extraordinary Idiots, John, Greg, Jean, Kathy, Terry. That's a level of patron on my Patreon. They're wonderful. I adore them, and I appreciate you all. If you want to get involved with my Patreon, help support the podcast, it truly helps. It makes such a difference, and you can do that for as little as $1 a month, and you get bonus episodes, uncut episodes early, and more depending on where you go up that pipeline, but guaranteed that at least. And yeah. Please keep in mind that no guest is or claims to be a representative for every person who has a similar identity. They're just one person sharing their own experience and ideas to help us get a peek at how things look from their situated position in the world. If you have additional questions for Chelsea or any guest, or you'd like to suggest a guest or a topic that maybe you would like to hear about but you don't know a guest specifically who would be good, head over to the Facebook group. It's Ignorance is #BlessedIdiots. It's a private Facebook group, a little small community, safe space for unsafe thoughts. It's discussion with people who disagree is encouraged. Just generic name calling and being like, you're fucking wrong is discouraged. It's there for discourse, so at least be willing to listen and consider someone's thoughts before you go like, yeah, they're still wrong, which is okay. But it's a lot of agreeing to disagree, and mostly a lot of sharing silly memes, and more importantly, give me the suggestions you want. But also, open forum. Talk about whatever you want. Maybe you had an ignorant moment this week that you want to go, oh man, I really fudged up and I said this and I didn't even realize it was offensive, or whatever. It's there. It's a cool little community. Everyone's fucking rad. So that is available to you. And that's the best way to ask me questions. And please, please, please do keep asking questions of me, of others, of yourself. The more we ask, the more we learn, the more we know. And the more we know, the more we can look down on others who aren't as smart as we are. And isn't that the point? As always, thank you for listening. And thank you for being patient with my ignorance. See you soon, idiots.